Greetings viewers, and welcome to another edition of the Happy Halloweenathon. My name is Azioid, and today's review is The Fly. I want to give you beloved YouTube fans a grand apology because of the channel being behind in production during Biggcriddi's Happy Halloweenathon. And since Halloween is only a week away, I've decided to review a unique monster movie from the late 50s with the 1958 film known as The Fly. But first, the history bit. The Fly was a 1958 American science fiction horror film directed by Kurt Newman. He also directed several low-budget Tarzan movies, Rocket Ship XM, and more recently She-Devil and Chronos. The movie was based on a science fiction short story of the same name by French-British author George Langelaan, and the short story itself was published in an issue of Playboy magazine, while the screenplay for the film was written by James Clavell. Clavell's adaptation moves from France and Canada and slightly altered some plot details, while retaining the core story of a scientist transforming into a fly hybrid creature after an experiment goes wrong. The film was produced by 20th Century Fox, with a budget of $495. It starred David Hedison, Patricia Owens, and Vincent Price, respectively. Patricia plays the role of Helene DeLamber, Andre's beloved wife. She plays a key role in the film, as she must come to terms with her husband's transformation and tries to help him. With that being said, she does essentially become the film's emotional core as she grapples with the tragedy. And then there's David Hedison playing the role of Andre DeLamber, a scientist and devoted family man, whose downfall isn't because of his madness and malice, but because of a moment of carelessness rooted in his own brilliance and hubris. And finally, Andre's brother Francois DeLamber. While he's not the main protagonist, he's central to the film's narrative, as becomes the audience's stand-in while investigating the mystery of his brother's grisly death and being served as the compassionate archer for what would become an essential story of a scientific hubris and emotional tragedy. The special effects of the movie were handled by Ben Nye for his makeup effects and the original Fly, while L.B. Abbott handled the special photographic effects. Ben Nye created a large 20-pound fly head with quivering proboscis and a clawed fly hand for the actor, using materials like turkey feathers for the feelers. A special lens and kaleidoscopic effect mimicked the fly's compound eyes, and a classic chilling final shot showed the fly-headed and fly-armed human being trapped in a spider web, which was achieved through optical printing. And finally, the score, which was composed by Paul Sortel, although I was unable to find too many details regarding the man's talents in particular films, only that he collaborated with Burt Schefter on the musical score, which enhanced the film's atmospheric and foreboding mood. Now then, with the information taken care of, let's take a look at the 1958 film known as The Fly, and see if the film still holds up with the characters, the plot, and the effects decades ahead of its time for this year's Happy Halloweenathon. Helene DeLamber, played by Patricia Owens, is seen late at night standing next to a huge metal press, as her husband's remains were squashed underneath the metal press within the factory owned by her husband. And when one of the workers at the factory saw her run away, and the body splattered underneath the press, Francois DeLamber, the husband's brother, and played by Vincent Price, is called by both the factory worker and Helene. But unfortunately, the near-catatonic Helene wouldn't answer Francois's questions or Inspector Charas, played by Herbert Marshall, regarding the incident with her husband's corpse, and so she's put on constant surveillance. She's held for murder and refuses to tell anyone what happened and why she did it. However, she is constantly tormented by the incident that when her nurse notices a fly and she kills it against Helene's pleas, she completely falls into despair.
Leave it alone! No! No! I want to look at the fly.
Back into
Please
bed.
let me look at the fly.
Back into bed, madam.
Where is it? Oh,
I don't know. I feel like the doctor should have listened to her patient. As the nurse followed the fly around, you can clearly see Helene completely getting anxious. And then, as soon as the nurse attempts to kill the tiny fly, she freaks out. Then she pushes past the nurse and checks to see if the fly was still alive. And when it wasn't alive anymore, she starts crying on the floor. If you ask me, in my personal doctor opinion, I feel as though Helene is suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. And by seeing flies around her house, it always takes her back to that horrible moment in her life that she can never forget.
Well, that is an interesting theory, but we are only 19 minutes into the film. Let's try to keep going and maybe you could diagnose her further at the end of the movie, Nurse Helena.
Very true.
Inspector Charas attempted to ask Helene about the incident, but she could only answer a few questions and dodged the remaining questions until a tiny fly started flying around the room and Helene started following it around the room, only to flick it away when it landed on her lamp. Finally, through many promises being made between Helene and Francois, Helene finally explains to Francois what happened to Francois' brother and why she killed him. We then get treated to a flashback several months before the incident, with Andre Delamba played by David Hedison, as he secretly built a teleportation chamber device. And while he's enthused by the world of science, he spends less time with Helene and their son Philippe, played by Charles Herbert. He decides to show Helene how his teleportation device works by using a plate first. The plate successfully teleported from one spot to the other with some malfunctions. So Andre decides to test the machine on the house cat with frightening results, as the cat wasn't teleported to the other chamber, and Andre could only hear faint meows of the house cat. When we eventually do see Helene and Andre spend time together, he's more determined than anything to perfect his invention, even during their quality time together.
I think we can both agree without a doubt that that was pretty romantic.
And how do you figure that?
Oh, come on, Azeoid, it's so obvious. The chemistry between Helene and Andre is warm and affectionate. Helene is not a mere damsel in distress or a neglectful wife. She is intelligent, independent, and takes a genuine interest in Andre's scientific pursuits, viewing his obsessive work ethic as simply a part of his charm.
And I couldn't agree more, Nurse Helena. It's a shame, however, for what's about to happen next. After a wonderful evening together at the ballet, Andre once again shows Helene the invention improvements. He successfully teleports a bottle of liquor to the other chamber. But then Andre doesn't stop there against Helene's wishes. Andre teleports a guinea pig from one chamber to the other chamber successfully. Unfortunately, Andre still believes they need to wait before he deems the invention a success, but not before telling Helene what happened to the house cat. So Helene makes Andre promises her that he would never do any more animal experiments. And as they drink their champagne, a few more months roll by. Andre lays on a lawn chair as Helene accompanies him. As they converse their love for one another, Andre suggests that Francois to come witness Andre's invention for himself. Upon walking to Andre's lab, Andre leaves a note on the door preventing both Francois and Helene from entering the lab. And as time passes, not even the maid has been able to see Andre, as he hasn't touched his dinner that she left for him. So Helene decides to check up on him. Unfortunately, the same as last time, Andre leaves Helene another note from his typewriter. With each note, Helene wastes no time to help Andre despite not being able to see his face. However, Andre does tell Helene that she needs to find a fly that has a white head, to which upon their second meet, Helene informs Andre that she accidentally told Philippe to get rid of the fly that he was looking for. Then suddenly,
I made him let it go.
So after Andre revealed his claw-like fly hand to Helene, as she was absolutely horrified by what she saw, but she was still determined to find the fly. The next day Helene, Philippe, and the maid all worked together to find the fly. Philippe managed to catch the fly, but it got away, and Helene attempted to catch the fly, but she was unable, returning to Andre empty-handed. Andre gives Helene another note, explaining to her what happened when he tried the invention on himself. When he went through the teleporter himself, a fly that was unknown to him got caught in the machine with him, and when they were teleported through the chamber, their atoms got tangled together, and Andre believes that with the fly their atoms can be untangled. Unfortunately, because Helene was unable to catch the fly in time, Andre was unable to wait any longer, and decided he would need to destroy himself so no one could know what he did. But Helene still believes the machine will work if he goes through again without the fly. And with enough convincing, he goes through the teleporter once more, but it was no use.
I know it's working!
So after Helene faints, Andre, with what little humanity he has left in him, he starts going on a rampage in the lab, destroying the teleportation chambers, and burns all of his lab notes in a trash can fire. And finally, as Helene reawakens, Andre writes down one last request for Helene to help destroy him. So with only minutes left in the movie, Andre leads Helene towards a metal press in a factory. He uses hand signals gesturing her how to use the metal press as he lays down with his fly head and fly arm inside the press. However, when the press starts to come down, Andre can't control himself. So Helene tries to stop him as the fly hand grabs onto her. She screams a little, trying to break free as the press eventually comes down. As Helene breaks free and Andre gets crushed underneath the press, although Helene makes sure she brings the press down 2 times to assure herself that Andre was dead. Which brings us right back to the beginning, as Inspector Charas and Francois couldn't believe the story they were told. However, neither one believed the story until Philippe showed Francois and Inspector Charas a tiny fly trapped on a spider web, with Andre's head and arms screaming constantly in the garden as a spider approaches. Once the inspector kills both the fly and the spider with a rock, both of them agree that Andre's death was by suicide, and once Helene was freed from all charges against her, Francois took it upon himself to help Helene raise Philippe in Andre's place, and they lived happily ever after. And now it's time to give my results of the movie. I really enjoyed reviewing this film. The story takes itself very seriously, and you see a lot of depth with the characters and plot. Although Helene may have fainted one time, I was really impressed by the strength of this woman. In her own right, she was the main character in her own story, and her love for Andre captivated me in believing she would move mountains for her husband. It is rather shameful how the story ended, but with Helene's performance, Andre was just as good. He was very likable, and you could see his struggles with his devoted diligence to his work. However, the one thing I would nitpick about is how the film ends. It felt so anticlimactic. The film was wrapped up so quickly that, first of all, there was no funeral for Andre's death. Second, despite Helene's black dress, you really have no idea if she is still mourning Andre's death or not. It just seemed like a really rushed and weird way to end the movie. But upon further research, I discovered that James Clavell's first script was going to stay faithful to the original short story. But the 20th Century Fox put a stop to that and demanded a happier ending. and from seeing what they put together for the ending, I can see why it would look confusing to audiences. There was other interesting information, like with Inspector Charas and Francois, when they were filming the final scene with the spider web. Apparently, Vincent Price had to do several takes because the animatronic figure's movements would make him burst out laughing. Overall, the film was heartfelt, well-paced, and very imaginative for its time. If you haven't seen this movie, you must. It was still a good popcorn flick and a perfect movie for the Halloween season. Well, this concludes the review. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. And don't forget to hit the bell icon for early notifications for future movie review content and more. As always, thank you all for watching. My name is Azeoid and we'll see you next time.